Was there any like childhood, early youth experience that really spurred this? Because it sounds like this was a lifelong
Yeah,
passion that stemmed when you were really young.
a couple things. I believe I'm right here. The only F5 tornado in Illinois in August happened in 1990 in Plainfield. Plainfield's a suburb of Chicago. So I was the fall of my fifth grade year, and I remember going outside that day and we lived, I want to say 65, 70 miles southwest of Plainfield. I can remember going out that afternoon and seeing what we call cumulonimbus clouds, like
Mm.
thunderstorm clouds,
Mm.
like really tall. And we're talking, I'm guessing with that storm, probably 60,000 foot tops. I remember seeing those clouds and being fascinated from that far away, like, wow, like that's really cool. I don't remember seeing something like that from that distance. We'll come to find out that night on the news, this devastating tornado hit, it absolutely decimated part of Plainfield.
Mm.
So that next, we're going back 36 years here, so I can't remember how many days later it was. The closest mall to us at that time was Joliet. So we would always go to the Joliet Mall. And Plainfield is proximal to Joliet. So at some point after this had hit to where you could get into the subdivisions and actually so access was somewhat opened up, it wasn't all sealed off. We went and did a family trip to the Joliet Mall, and I can remember Nintendo was the gaming system at the time, and I had a magazine, Nintendo, the old,
Yeah.
old original
Yeah.
Nintendo. My dad said, "You will put that down. We're going to drive through where the tornado hit." And I can still picture it like it was yesterday, driving through some of the subdivisions and seeing that and just being absolutely fascinated with what could cause this level. Because, I mean, an F5 tornado, now that's the old Fujita. We now have the EF scale, but still, that would still be an EF5 tornado. They've just made some changes to the damage scale to better reflect things like structural integrity and building codes and things like that. I mean, you had homes that were basically leveled down to slabs.
That is
Or
insane.
like little left, but maybe fractions of walls
Yeah,
on the
4 foot
lower
wall.
level. I
Yeah.
mean, 3 or 4 feet of a wall left. And of course, there were, if I remember right, several dozen fatalities. And I just can remember thinking all that came from that would have been an updraft or the back, that cumulonimbus cloud that I saw, and just absolutely being fascinated with that. Well, probably one of the most famous meteorologists in the country, Tom Skilling. He worked for Channel 9, WGN, Channel 9 in Chicago. He just retired, I think it was earlier last year. Tom did a presentation every year in Fermilab, which is up in Batavia. They came out with a documentary called It Sounded Like a Freight Train. And it focused on the Plainfield tornado. And so that I can remember, watching that as a kid and being fascinated. And then, growing up, then you're now old enough to kind of understand what's going on because I'm getting into be a teenager. And okay, we have tornado warnings and seeing these so I never actually personally lived through a tornado that hit like our community. Although, fun fact, in 2010, Streeter got hit June 5th, 2010. It did actually tear the roof off of my childhood home, but we didn't live there anymore. So it was just those formative things that happened as a kid that I can remember. Kind of igniting my interest in it a little bit. Another infamous tornado, Andover, Kansas, April 26, 1991. The next day, there was some severe weather as the system moved east. I can remember my dad getting us into the car and we went and followed. There was a funnel cloud. Actually, kind of. Wow. So little things like that really just basically fascinated me as a kid, a young kid, a burgeoning teenager, that I wanted to learn and understand more about this process, this phenomenon.
Could you explain the difference between an EF1 through an EF5 tornado? Like you mentioned, that damages, is it based on like cost of rebuilding, how severe the damage is? What exactly does EF stand for, if you
Okay,
will?
E and EF, Dr. Ted Fujita. So we're going back mid 20th century. I think Dr. Fujita passed, it was 1998 or 1999. he is one of the foremost, if not the most well-known researchers on tornado genesis, tornado climatology. He did extensive damage on what causes tornado, or I'm sorry, not damage, extensive research on what causes tornadoes and the impact of their damage. One of the focus areas of his research was how to quantify. So the scientific need to quantify things. How do we quantify tornadoes? Like, because they're not all a little thin road. And by the way, size and wind speed are not coterminous. You can have large tornadoes that are weak, and you can have smaller tornadoes that are very violent.
Mhm.
Gerald, Texas, for 1987 is an example. But just for the purpose of our discussion, you can have a little thin rope tornado that's got 90, 100 mile an hour winds. That's like an EF1 that does minimal damage versus an F5, which will do absolutely, or EF5, which will do catastrophic damage. I'm bad about it because I grew up with the Fujita scale, and now we have the Enhanced Fujita scale. So
Yeah, no, you're
sometimes
fine.
I get them
No.
mixed up, or I use them interchangeably. But an EF1, so an EF5, you're talking like 200 mile an hour winds or more. An EF1 is going to be, you're looking at like winds closer to like 100 miles an hour. So they're rated based on forecasters and damage survey experts will go look at where the tornado hit, and they'll take a look at how was the structure, how sound was it, like what was the construction like. Like a well-built brick home is obviously different than a mobile home on a flat.
Yeah.
So an EF1 tornado could do substantial damage to a mobile home on a slab, and they're not all anchored very well. It is not going to cause substantial damage to a well-built brick home. You might have some windows broke, you might have some minor roof damage, some gutter and awning damage, but it's not going to compromise the structural integrity of a well-built brick home. A more serious tornado would. A weak tornado can absolutely tear up, your shed out back.
Yeah.
It can do a number on a mobile home or any type of a poorly built structure. So they're really looking at like what was the structural integrity of whatever was hit, and also things, because it's not all buildings either. It can look at things like in fields like irrigation pivot systems, high tension transmission lines, telephone poles. There's all different types of like items or structures that are damaged by a tornado, and they'll look at, well, what type of wind speeds were necessary to cause this. A plus B equals C. And so it's really just trying to quantify how strong were the winds in this tornado, since we don't often have a record, and even if we do, it's just like in one particular place in one segment.
Yeah.
How violent or strong was this tornado, and what does it take to do this? So we kind of have an idea of what we're working with here.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was thinking about the trains that got flown
Same.
off the track,
Right.
and it's hard to imagine that until you go see it. So I was driving by, I saw them knocked over, and I was like, I was just like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just really severe, like you said.
And I think if I remember that this tornado just happened, what was it, last Thursday?
Yeah.
I want to say it was an EF1.
Okay, yeah, see, it's just like toss it off the track like it was nothing.
But in there again,
Right.
you're dealing with the physics of what it takes to overturn a train car is absolutely different than this is a well-built, or it looks to me like a well-built home.
Yeah.
So it's not going to, that
Right,
strength
difference.
of a tornado is not going to lift this house off its foundation and do to it what it did to a train car.
Right.
Weight, structure, train cars aren't, all those factors go into play.
Right. Still, it's incredible to see.
But
and
it is.
It's hard
Absolutely.
to really
Like,
get a
what
picture of it.
causes this? Sure.
I was reading a book earlier today, and which is great timing because there's a section on misinterpretation or maybe misunderstanding what you do, forecasting and reporting. Because like the average layperson, man, it was really hot today. Thanks, Mr. Risley. You made it hot today. Or that tornado that destroyed my aunt's shed last week, that's your fault. I'm going to get you for that. So I really want to read this section because I think unleashes something that we probably don't think about in terms of like the association principle. So this article excerpt is called Weatherman Pay Price for Nature's Curveballs by David L. Langford. And this is from Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. Television weather forecasters make a good living talking about the weather, but when Mother Nature throws a curveball, they duck for cover. Conversations with several veteran prognosticators across the country this week turned up stories of them being whacked by old ladies with umbrellas, accosted by drunks in bars, pelted with snowballs and galoshes, threatened with death, and accused of trying to play God. I had one guy call and tell me that if it snowed over Christmas, I wouldn't live to see New Year's, said Bob Gregory, who has been the forecaster at WTHR TV in Indianapolis for 9 years. Most of the forecasters claim they are accurate 80% to 90% of the time on one-day forecasts, but longer range predictions get tricky. And most conceded they are simply reporting information supplied by computers and anonymous meteorologists from the National Weather Service or a private agency. But it's the face of the television screen that people go after. Tom Bonner, 35, who has been of Kark TV in Little Rock, Arkansas for 11 years, remembers the time a burly farmer from Lonoke, with too much to drink, walked up to him in a bar, poked a finger in his chest, and said, "You're the one that sent that tornado and tore my house up. I'm going to take your head off." Bonner said he looked for the bouncer, couldn't spot him, and replied, "That's right about the tornado. And I'll tell you something else. I'll send another one if you don't back off." So that's just a little excerpt on how people tend to vastly exaggerate perhaps even the job of a forecaster, what you do, because they think, okay, weather's bad. If the forecaster's wrong, it's the forecaster's fault, even though you obviously cannot control the weather in any capacity. So could you speak on that? Like, what do regular lay people technically get wrong all the time about these kinds of situations?
Have you ever gambled?
I have, yes.
Because essentially, what anyone's doing with meteorology, the atmosphere is a fluid dynamic. You're trying to predict the future behavior of a fluid dynamic.
Mhm.
So essentially, it's akin to gambling in the sense that you're trying to predict the outcome of something in the future. The only difference, of course, is you're not involved in some attempt to get some sort of monetary gain from it, obviously, in the sense that somebody is gambling. But I think people misinterpret how hard it really is to predict the behavior of a fluid dynamic in a future point in time.
Mhm.
You are asking someone to make a predict, and also the average person does not understand probability.